The sky is blazing under the wings of pure terror. The red dragon is claiming the horizon. These beasts are humanity's ultimate predators, hunting not for a snack, but just for the fun of turning civilization into ash and rubble. For those brave enough to look into the abyss, destiny offers a super tight crossroads with zero chance of turning back. The air hums, the mana bends, and the spellcaster weaves the ether to make the impossible happen. That is the path of the mage of the art of bending reality and pulling off miracles that completely defy nature. Against those tough scales, the mystic unleashes his fury in blasts of pure, raw energy. Big mistake. The beast does not even flinch, it just flashes its fangs in a totally mocking, sinister smile. The blast hits, the flash is blinding, but the magic barely even scratches the creature's massive ego. Failure leaves a sour taste, and through gritted teeth, the mage spits out his bitter frustration. Giving them zero time to regret their life choices, the monster dives down as fast as a literal nightmare. But destiny has another side to it, where the body turns into solid steel, and Aura emerges with the blade and techniques that go way beyond human limits. With the weight of a lifetime behind it, the warrior drives the metal right where the magic could not reach, straight into the monster. Behold the path of the swordsman, an absolute choice that completely locks you out of any other route. One clean, precise, devastating strike, the beast's chest finally understands what real pain feels like. The impact explodes into flames, and the creature, once the king of the sky, gets tossed aside like a ragdoll. In the eyes of the rookies, the lesson is brutal: pick a lane and accept the risk of getting stomped by your own limits. Or forge the willpower needed to lead people through the chaos, just like the swordsman calling the shots on the battlefield. Eyes locked on the target, our MC gears up to do exactly what he came here for. He completely ignores gravity and dive bombs out of the sky right at the giant's throat. Eye to eye, the monster glares at the kid holding the final verdict in his hands. The glare of the raised blade is the very last thing the beast will see before it is lights out. Back on the ground, the MC stares down the massive shadow, trying and failing to smother his vibe. The warrior and the mage just freeze. The reality in front of them totally shatters what they thought was the top of the food chain. Whoever masters this path does not just walk among people, they walk among absolute legends. The realization hits them with a heavy silence when Master Oscar locks his eyes on them. Pure shock takes over Oscar, the sword saint, right there in the middle of nowhere, where even hope usually skips town. Between sighs of relief, one of them tries to put into words how thankful they are for being pulled back from the brink. Oscar does not need a round of applause. He turns his back and lets the silence finish the chat. Seeing a father hug his son, the MC remembers the heavy weight of his own choice at picking steel over spells. At the top of the world, where the air is way too thin for the weak, he thinks back to a sweet little memory. Flashback time: a guy is mapping out the supernatural for a little girl, introducing her to the pure sparkle of magic. The light particles dance around, floating like little stars you could actually touch. Back in the day, young Oscar looked at that glow with his heart totally wide open in absolute awe. He knows exactly what he has become: the idol, the main pillar, the guy everybody else wants to be. But the sparkle in that kid's eyes when looking at magic is a shadow that all his success just cannot wipe away. The glory of the sword is huge, but his soul still holds onto the echo of that first magical wonder. The man carries his fair share of scars, but that childhood obsession with magic, that never left him, not even for a split second. Under the brutal mountain snow, he grips his wooden practice sword and completely ignores his own exhaustion. Every single move the kid makes is a deal struck with sheer determination. He is not just training, he is sculpting himself. Two apprentices down on their knees watch the absolute masterclass in discipline the MC is serving to the cold. The girl asks if this is the sacred spot. The guy confirms, mentioning that the ground here used to be perfectly flat before the master's willpower totally wrecked it. Spine straight, eyes on the horizon, the boy gets ready for the very next strike. That crater in the ground is not from nature, but from sweating it out day after day, hit after hit. The girl can barely even process that level of grind. Sweat dripping, sword raised, the MC blocks out the whole world and zeroes in on getting the form absolutely flawless. The apprentice watches in a total trance. His strength is like a quiet kind of intensity she never even imagined. The topic shifts when a detail in her hands catches some attention, sparking a memory that just cannot be ignored. A shout breaks the trance. The apprentice comes running, dragging the outside world right into that ironclad retreat. A letter from the imperial capital crosses the young man's path, carrying the heavy weight of an empire in every single line. While the paper spills its secrets, the fear in the apprentice's eyes asks the one question nobody wants to hear. Letting out a huge sigh like he is carrying the whole world, the MC groans about getting another medal for taking down the dragon. To him, all that capital city glory is just an invitation to a massive headache. With a smile that breaks the ice, the apprentice points out that only he would brush off an honor like that, since his flexes could easily score him a golden seat in the imperial court. His reply is blunt: politics is a total snake pit, and the luxury of the capital is where serious training goes to fade away. He would rather stick to the mud and the isolation. Catching that gleam in her master's eyes, the girl drops a checkmatey. Does he actually have any love for that chunk of steel? The silence hangs in the air for a second, while he sorts out the real feelings he is keeping bottled up. A little smirk pops up. Totally unguarded, he admits that love is not exactly the word he would use. The root of the story is plain and simple. He picked up the sword because his dad, a master of the craft, basically ordered him to. The girl is totally stunned. The living legend of the sword is, deep down, just the result of a strict command with zero room to argue. He confirms it without any drama. The path everyone hypes up was never a choice. It was just a forced destiny. The guy apprentice jumps in with a little bit of harmless jealousy, saying the master was born with pure talent running through his veins, which makes everything way easier. The young dude's own insecurities show up. He chose to be there, but the fear of just being average haunts him, making him wonder if he would be better off with scrolls and spells instead. The hands that should be rock steady are shaking, giving away the heavy doubt that is totally eating at his vibe. The rule is absolute. Whether you are shaping mana or waking up sword aura, the power flows through the exact same channels in the body. It is a game of total opposites. Push the wrong energy into the other circuit, and the body basically self-destructs into a game over screen. That is why step 1 is a lifelong deal. Pick your talent, and accept that the other side is locked out for you forever. The MC drops a heavy hand on the kid's shoulder, acting like an anchor so the guy does not just drift off. Oscar's advice is a straight-up reality check. If you have time to doubt, you are not spending enough time training. He only made it to the top because he never stopped swinging at the air. With his determination completely recharged, the young dude takes the master's lesson like a direct order for battle. Under the cover of night, the MC stares up at the ceiling, letting the quiet of the house echo his own what-ifs. In his head, he admits the hypocrisy. He gave the kid the advice he needed to hear, but knows darn well he has zero moral high ground to preach about solid convictions. That line about natural talent keeps looping in his mind, and the sword saint's face gets clouded with some seriously old-school sadness. Deep down in his chest, the forbidden question pops back up: how far could he have actually gone if he had chosen the magic route? He repeats his own words to himself, trying to convince his own heart of the exact same thing he just preached to his apprentice. His body reacts way before his brain does. His pupils dilate as he feels the sharp edge of some heavy hostile intent slicing right through the night. The boom is absolute. The hero's safe house is turned into splinters and smoke in a fraction of a second. Through the trees, the flames dance on the leftovers of the cabin, while a bunch of hooded shadows keep a close watch. 3 figures step right out of the dark, staffs ready to go, giving off that sketchy metallic scent of forbidden magic. One guy's doubt gets shut down by the other's caution. You do not celebrate taking down a sword saint until you actually see the fallen body. Much to the squad's absolute horror, the MC walks right out of the ashes, without a scratch and rocking a stare colder than the fire burning around him. Blade in hand, he reads the room fast. These guys are not rookies, they are high-tier magical enforcers. The MC's eyes lock onto the leader. The chess game is officially over, and things are about to get super messy on the board. On the boss's command, the air catches fire in a massive barrage of spells aiming for a total wipeout. With his steel ready to do the talking, our guy stares down the absolute inferno heading his way without even blinking. He dances with danger, dodging the blasts while closing the gap like a lightning bolt cutting right through a storm. In a single breath, the gap is closed. The MC is a millimeter away from claiming his first knockout, but his movement just locks up. A massive surprise freezes his swing before any real damage is done. The leader plays totally dirty. He uses the apprentice as a human shield, promising to end the girl's run if the master's steel does not drop to the floor right now. Between sobs and pure panic, the girl cries silently, trapped in a kind of cruelty she never expected to run into. The MC demands to know why they are trying so hard. The mage's answer is completely blunt: they are here to collect the Sword Saint's bounty. He looks genuinely confused. He does not remember ticking anyone off badly enough to deserve this level of an ambush. The attacker's smile is just pure mockery. Of course you do not remember. He totally gloats. They spit out the real deal. Oscar's crime was not his sword skills, but walking around with a magical talent so insanely huge that just existing is an insult to other mages. Those words sound like absolute nonsense to the guy's ears. The mage wraps it up with the ultimate villain attitude: explanations are pointless for a guy who is already at the end of his rope. In a scream that tears right through the despair, the apprentice calls out her master's name. With the guts of someone accepting their fate, she begs him to ignore her and do his job. As a sword fighter, she already accepted the risks that come with the gig. The weight of his students' words shifts the whole vibe. The MC's expression locks into absolute, dead, serious focus. His stare is pure steel now. He totally gets the board and adjusts his grip on the sword for the final play. The mage leader smirks, feeling pretty satisfied seeing the hero accept the brutal logic of a sacrifice. But the MC smiles right back, now packing a dangerously confident vibe. Their plan was flawed from the start, because underestimating that girl's grit was the very last mistake they ever made. Tempers flare, one of the mages loses his patience and decides to wrap up the chat with pure force. With his back to the danger, the MC feels the chill of ice spears ripping through the air straight at him. Frost projectiles come flying in like relentless stakes, aiming right for the sword saint. The boom of the impact kicks up a massive curtain of dust and ash, hiding the hero's fate under a thick blanket of smoke. Standing perfectly still, the squad leader squints, just waiting for the fog to reveal the defeated hero. A tiny scratch shows up on his face, but his victory smile is huge. He actually thinks he just tamed the absolute legend. His triumph gets totally choked out when the henchman holding the hostage just drops, tagged right in the chest by the steel that absolutely should not be over there. The leader freezes, completely mind blown by the sacrifice. To him, swordsmen are just crazy people willing to throw their whole existence in the trash for a tiny shred of honor. He calls it a win with a seriously bitter taste in his mouth and dips, leaving behind the fallen form of the guy who used to be the sword saint. The shadows pull out, leaving the prodigy carrying the weight of two different worlds entirely to his own fate. The apprentice sprints over, panic totally dictating her speed. Seeing the heavy damage her master took, sheer terror sets in, and she begs for an explanation that just does not exist. Looking incredibly roughed up, the MC offers one last smile at the end of the day. He is still a swordman through and through. Through his tears, the kid declares he is ready to fade out right alongside his master. The boy is completely drowning in guilt, screaming at the sky, but the MC uses his very last bit of strength to let the kid off the hook. The weight of this destiny does not belong to him. Words just are not cutting it. The young guy's crying is the only sound left in the middle of all that rubble. Even with his energy fading fast, the MC tries to be the solid rock his apprentice needs right now. But deep down, his regret is totally different. If he had just embraced the staff instead of the blade, this tragedy would have had a completely different ending. The truth finally stops hiding. He always wanted the flash of the spells, not the edge of the steel. Every single sword swing in his life was just an escape, a way to avoid facing the fact that his heart just was not in it. He looks back on his whole journey and admits that the hype from the medals and the applause only gave him a temporary high. But nothing, absolutely nothing, ever hit as hard as the urge to touch that magical light from his childhood. He reaches his hand up toward the sky, and suddenly, the whole scene flips. The cold fade-out gets swapped for a forest completely soaked in golden sunlight. The MC looks down at his own hands, small and with zero calluses, trying to figure out what kind of wild illusion this is. A touch to his chest reveals the impossible, that fatal damage is gone, and his heart is beating with the strength of someone who has their whole life ahead of them. Where did destiny just drop him? Total confusion is the very first thing that hits him in that quiet, green space. The smell of the dirt and the shape of the trees do not lie. He is in Eisen, the starting village where everything kicked off. The memory of his final moment is still super fresh, but his breathing body is screaming that the game over was actually just a respawn. Something is resting right next to him. He steps closer, feeling like that piece of paper carries the weight of an entire era. The kid's face completely lights up with a shock that is borderline pure hype. In his hands are two envelopes worth way more than entire kingdoms, the acceptance letters for both the magic and the sword academies. The ritual is totally old school. At 15 years old, the kingdom hands you the ultimate crossroads, one invite for the steel, another for the ether. The rule is simple and completely brutal. Pick a paper, walk through the matching gate, and totally forget the other life ever existed. Down on his knees with his wooden sword tossed aside, he stares at the letters that will dictate his future. The paper is real, the texture is right there, the big question hangs in the air: did he actually just hack time itself? It hits him like an absolute truck. He just regressed back to being 14 years old, the exact moment right before he chained himself to the sword. A massive shadow falls over him, totally blocking out the sunlight. That boss-level aura is unmistakable. His dad calls out to him, and the voice carries the weight of a mountain he thought he had left way behind. The words get stuck in his throat. The MC stammers, face to face with the living ghost of the guy who literally shaped his entire destiny. The initial shock turns into crystal clarity. If time really did rewind, the man who shut down his dreams is standing right there, in the flesh. His dad drops the first lecture, calling him out for slacking off and letting his talent go to his head instead of sweating it out in training. He looks down, but definitely not out of submission. He is just revisiting old scars that never really healed. On the inside, he brushes off the arrogance claim. He remembers that his old silence was really just the fear of admitting his soul belonged to magic all along. His dad's presence was like a sun that completely blinded everything else, a sword master surrounded by people chasing his clout. Being the heir to that bloodline, the path of the blade was never a mere suggestion, it was basically a life sentence. He remembers the day his hype finally beat his fear, and he ran to tell his dad about this incredibly beautiful spell he had just seen. Little Oscar was waving his hands around, describing lights and absolute miracles, until his dad's deep voice cut through the air like a literal guillotine. The man dropped the final verdict: magic is just a hiding spot for people too weak to handle steel. It is an art for lightweights. The grip on his shoulders felt like handcuffs. Being that man's son meant wielding the sword and absolutely nothing else. The kid's whole world just crashed down right there. He gets it now. He spent decades swinging metal just so his own family would not throw him away, and burying what he really wanted led him straight to a lonely bad ending. But right now is a whole different ballgame. The MC stands up, and the look he shoots at the horizon is not from an obedient son anymore, but from a guy who already met his maker once over a choice that was not even his. His grip on the wood is tight, but the real verdict is on the inside. His quota for going down as Destiny's pawn maxed out a long time ago. The reflection staring back from the water is that of a mystic. In this brand new run, he is swearing loyalty only to the dream he kept locked in his chest. His dad's voice snaps him out of it, demanding to know what kind of slacking off is replacing his heavy steel training. Without even looking away, the kid drops the truth: the amount of time he has spent staring at the edge of a blade is already enough for about 10 lifetimes. The master freezes. His son's line sounds like absolute heresy that his brain literally cannot compute. The ground shakes under the sheer weight of his aura. Swords made of pure energy sprout from the dirt like teeth from an angry planet, courtesy of the sword saint. The pressure is just insane. One of the disciples completely crumbles, his body tapping out under the weight of air that just turned into solid lead. It is a total spiritual beatdown. The other apprentices bow down, getting crushed by a force that does not even leave room to breathe. Except the MC is still standing right there, totally solid, staring back at his dad with a level of disrespect that fear cannot even touch. Down on the ground, everyone is completely shook. Nobody gets how the kid is holding his ground while the whole world around them collapses in heavy aura. Right in the eye of the storm, he is completely chill. He faces his dad's tantrum like a guy who has seen way worse on the other side. The master goes quiet, sizing up every single inch of this totally new and unfamiliar vibe his son is throwing off. Walking past the defeated guys crawling on the ground, the dad drops a twisted compliment. Looks like the kid's absolute audacity actually has some backup. The tap on the shoulder is heavy, but the MC does not even wobble. His choice is already set in stone. The past echoes back, his dad promising him the keys to the empire, the top spot in the guild, as long as sweat and steel were his one and only religion. All around him, the shiny look of jealousy in everyone else's eyes. They all wanted the heavy baggage he was absolutely desperate to drop. The image of his dad giving that side smirk, so proud of his own creation, starts to crumble like ash in the wind. For a split second, his lowered head gives away the sadness for a dad he really loved, but who never actually saw him for who he was. That totally deep moment gets interrupted by a sudden smack on the back. Somebody out there thinks life is just one big joke. Two dudes box him in, rocking that smug attitude of guys who just came back from the academy to flex their medals and catch up by talking trash. The tone is pure bait. They say they're going to remind Oscar how to actually hold a sword, acting like they are doing a favor for a total loser. He recognizes these clowns. He remembers exactly what kind of act those two used to pull back in his pushover days. His dad loved making the wolves fight it out, calling it training, when it was really just a straight up meat grinder for the kids. The second these guys got a little taste of aura at the academy, the scales tipped all the way over into pure bullying. They used the "we are just teaching you" excuse to dump every single ounce of their frustration onto the kid, who had not awakened his powers yet. Back to the present, the bully squares up, looking super thirsty to repeat his old humiliation routine. The wood in the rival's hand glows with a trail of aura. He tells the MC to get into position, completely hyped to start the beatdown. The MC knows the math. Pure technique against raw aura is a matchup that logic says is already a massive L. But he just turns his back and walks toward the lake. His opponent is left hanging, not sure if the guy is rage, quitting, or just completely out of his mind. Looking over his shoulder, he drops a "thanks for everything" that sounds like a super final period at the end of a story that is already over. The dude just freezes. That reaction is definitely not in the script for someone expecting fear or a fight. Out of nowhere, the MC tosses the wooden sword right into the water and watches it sink, taking the very last trace of his old life down with it. The cowards just burst out laughing. They call the kid soft, a quitter who would rather pick the lake mud over a duel of steel. Raising his practice sword in a total rage, the bully yells about honor and disgrace, acting like the MC owes something to that edgy swordsman code. He keeps his back turned, eyes locked on the horizon, feeling the weight of the entire world literally sliding off his shoulders. He spins around with a smile that completely defuses any insultry. The sword gig ended right there. Now, he is going to claim what is rightfully his in the mystic arts. Completely blinded by rage, the rival warns that he shows zero mercy to unarmed guys and charges in like a bull, his aura buzzing off the wood. The MC's eyes turn into an absolute scanner. He reads every muscle, every intention, and every single flaw in the attack coming his way. The opponent tries a basic move. He uses aura to turbo, charge his legs and gain what should be an instant, knockout kind of speed. Massive mistake. With a clean side step and a surgical kick, the MC launches the dude's weapon like a satellite, sending it flying right into the bushes. Like a teacher schooling a toddler, he explains that a sword is not just an accessory. If it does not feel like a part of your own arm, you're just an amateur holding an overpriced toy. The bully's ego takes a massive hit. The lesson hurts way worse than the wipeout, and the rage goes straight to his head. Screaming like a guy who refuses to accept he is outmatched, he dives back in, trying to use pure anger to make up for his total lack of skill. The MC dodges with the smoothness of a dancer. For a split second, his master instincts kick in, and he finds himself basically tutoring the poor guy just like he did with his old students. Desperation comes knocking for the rival. He is out here punching the air, completely unable to even scratch the kid's shadow. The patience runs dry. The MC decides to wrap up this circus with a move way too fast for the eye to track. The impact is super clean. The kid's hand meets the opponent's face, completely shutting down the argument with absolute authority. Down on the ground and totally out of breath, the dude gets pinned by his own weapon, tasting the dirt and the heavy reality of taking a major L. Trash talk is the very last resort for a guy who just lost the fight and his dignity. The insult just echoes into nothing. From above, rocking his stare like he has seen literal empires fall, the MC just looks down at the kind of guy he used to be. Completely stunned, one of the sidekicks steps up, not getting why the big bad bully just totally fumbled his weapon advantage against a guy fighting with bare hands. From a distance, the MC watches the squad carry away whatever is left of the rival's pride, dipping out with their tails tucked firmly between their legs. He is feeling majorly accomplished. He knows that after an embarrassment like that, they will think 10 times before ever crossing his path again. He clenches his fist, thinking back to his past life, when his dad's heavy hand basically forced him to awaken an aura he never even wanted to carry. The goal is completely different now. To avoid falling into that exact same trap, he is going to master mana way before destiny tries to force the sword on him again. He leaves the battlefield in the rearview mirror, heading down a trail where the quiet woods are his one and only wingman. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, the MC gears up. The real grind, the one that actually matters, officially starts right now. Standing in front of this massive rock, he finds the ultimate chill spot, totally hidden from nosy people and judgy eyes. His mind drifts back to an old conversation, back when he asked a mystic about the secret behind weaving spells. He remembers his very warrior-like question: if a swordsman uses their spirit to harden their body, how exactly does a mage bend the invisible? The mage just stayed quiet for a second, totally appreciating the genuine curiosity coming from that night. Super calm, surrounded by the smell of flowers, she grabbed a watering can to help visually explain it. Holding the spout really carefully, she got ready to translate all that occult stuff into super basic movements. With a super chill smile, she explained that casting a spell is a lot like feeding the earth. It is just a steady flow of care and direction. The knight just repeated her words back, still trying to decode the whole watering can metaphor. She kept going. Mana is basically the breath of the world, invisible and literally everywhere, just waiting for the mystic to pull it into their channels and pour it over the right formula. Showing the water pouring out of the can, she wrapped it up. The miracle happens right where that flow meets your pure intention. Sitting on the rock, the MC digests every single word from that memory, turning her advice into his brand new compass. Mana fills the air. The mantra loops in his head, setting the pace for this new grind. He completely blocks out the outside world, sharpening his instincts to feel the energy pulsing way past what his eyes can actually see. The logic is crystal clear. If he can just catch a tiny glimpse of that mana glow, he will know exactly how to invite it inside. He did not forget who he used to be. The senses of a sword saint forged in extreme survival mode are still vibrating in his veins, ready to be hacked for a totally different art. His eyelids drop and his focus goes absolutely zeroed in. He dives straight into the dark just to find the light. He is banking on his perception overflowing, exposing the mana even if it stubbornly tries to hide from normal people. Suddenly, the veil just rips open, the world lights up in gold and sapphire particles dancing in the air, in the water, and in the sheer life pulsing all around him. When he opens his eyes, reality is totally completely overhauled. He sees the cosmos literally breathing in sparks of pure energy everywhere he looks. Bathed in this crazy supernatural glow, the kid feels his heart start to race. He is finally seeing the actual soul of the world. The always off the charts, he watches the mana dance with the absolute hype of a guy realizing the universe is way bigger than he ever thought. The excitement is overflowing. Step 1 is officially in the bag. Now, the real challenge is taming that flow and pulling it right into his own circuits. But the hype quickly makes room for a technical roadblock. Seeing the energy is one thing, but figuring out how to anchor it inside your own body is the real mystery. An unexpected flash cuts right across his line of sight, signaling that something in this scenery is definitely not going with the natural flow. He hops off the rock, landing as lightly as a predator to go check out whatever this glitch in the matrix is hiding. His eyes lock onto a super thick part of the woods. His instincts are screaming that the landscape over there was definitely messed with by something unnatural. He pushes forward, every single step strictly stealthy in the middle of this seriously suspicious silence that just dropped. Deep in the woods, the MC keeps his guard way up, feeling the air get heavy with a presence he cannot quite put a name to yet. His spider sense goes off. Zero animal life in this area is the absolute clearest sign that he just walked straight into a danger zone. The hit comes out of absolutely nowhere. A brutal impact slams him right into the dirt, kicking up a dust cloud that blinds him for a second. Down on the ground, he bounces back fast, clearing his eyes while trying to identify whatever just jumped him. Right in front of him, a literal mountain of rock comes to life. A massive golem stands up, totally blocking out the sun. He is still trying to wrap his head around how a monster of that tire ended up in such a forgotten corner of the woods. A super fast shadow crosses the sky right above him, making his senses scream that the real threat here is definitely not the giant rock monster. Then a female figure steps right out of the trees, walking toward him with the absolute boss energy of someone who owns the place. Hand extended, the mystery woman demands to know what kind of sheer nerve brought him crashing into her private workshop territory. Her eyes glow an intimidating crimson, totally accusing him of being just another petty thief trying to steal her secrets. Still on his knees, the MC shifts his stance. He knows his next move could easily be his last if he does not play this smart. Her warning is ice cold: pick your words like an absolute pro, or your run ends right here and now. His memory pulls up the name, Azabel, the absolute legend who turned ice into a danger zone and commanded golem armies that could totally wipe out entire legions. Sitting on her throne of authority, the creation mage locks eyes with the MC, putting out enough pressure to make a whole army shake in their boots. With his hands figuratively tied and totally at the mystic's mercy, the kid tastes the bitter irony of meeting his biggest idol in literally the worst scenario possible. Without skipping a beat, Azabel drops the ultimate question. Who do you work for, and what exactly are you trying to steal? The air crackles, the tip of her staff lights up with a lethal glow while her threat starts sounding a lot like a final sentence. The ground turns into a scarlet nightmare. A magic circle opens up right under the MC, who barely even has time to process that insane cast speed. From the top of her throne, Azabel is pure ice. She is tracking the kid's every heartbeat, demanding an excuse good enough to spare him. The panic starts closing in. He begs for a single second to breathe, swearing he only let himself get caught because he did not bring any bad vibes to begin with. That answer seems to poke at her curiosity. The mage mutters that if he is lying, it is easily one of the most shameless lies she has ever heard. She stands up, her staff pulsing with a blinding light. She brushes him off, totally ready to delete this nameless mage from the server. Pushed right to the edge of panic, the kid blurts out the truth. He is not a spy. He is just a guy who has not even managed to become a mage yet. The attack pauses in mid-air. Isabel freezes, staring him down like she is trying to solve a puzzle that is literally glitching reality. She steps closer with a heavy, doubtful walk, labeling his excuse as the absolute most pathetic, and therefore, maybe actually true, thing she has ever heard. Without even asking, she slaps her hand right on his head. A dome of light wraps around both of them for a super deep scan. The shock is totally visible. The mage's pupils dilate in a wild mix of disbelief and pure amazement. Her discovery is super weird. The kid's magic circuits are just empty voids, without a single drop of mana flowing where there should totally be life. The whole vibe shifts, now chilling in a lounge where the comfy setup totally masks the danger. She hands him a cup, admitting that the situation is way different than she originally thought. Between sips, Isabel drops a disclaimer: do not hold your breath for an apology, because being polite is definitely not in her toolkit. Her rant is loaded with venom. She complains that the second she took a teaching gig at the academy, the whole world started hunting her like a wild animal. The MC almost chokes on that reveal. The woman sitting right across from him is officially on the staff at the exact same academy he is trying to get into. She confirms it, admitting the academy is just a side hustle to fund her absolute obsession with golems. The kid realizes a golden ticket just literally dropped into his lap. Silence fills the room while she studies him over the rim of her cup, sizing up the actual worth of the guy sitting across from her. He swallows hard and calls her by name, scraping together every single ounce of courage to play his absolute best card. With the look of a guy who absolutely will not take no for an answer, he drops his request. He wants her to be the master who teaches him how to tame mana. Her rejection hits like a bucket of ice water. Isabel totally shuts him down, saying her time is way too valuable to waste on weak and clueless rookies. She brushes him off with the absolute chill of someone throwing out an old piece of furniture, leaving the MC alone with the heavy reality of his temporary fail. But the ghost of his brutal past flashes back in his mind. Backing down now means accepting his fate of getting a game over screen with a sword in his hand all over again. The sweat is dripping, but the fear gets totally overwritten by sheer, blind determination. There is zero chance he is leaving without what he came for. An automaton rolls up to keep the tea service going. Isabel, totally ignoring the heavy vibe, just signals for the drink to keep pouring. The kid watches the metal creature super closely, noticing that this specific golem was built strictly for manners and house chores. Except the MC's razor-sharp senses pick up a weird buzz in the energy. The mana powering the machine is acting like a totally cornered animal. Like a glowing map opening right in front of him, the golem's energy flow exposes a critical spot that is literally about to blow up. He shouts a warning, but Isabel cuts him off with pure sass, thinking he is just pulling some cheap stunt to get her attention again. His warning proves 100% true. In seconds, the golem starts glitching out, the metal grinds, and the teapot completely slips right out of its grip. In a wild spasm, the robot chucks the boiling hot porcelain straight at its own creator's face. Pure shock takes over the room. The MC yells the mage's name, seeing a mess that absolutely nobody saw coming. He rushes in for the save, holding out a handkerchief with the total instinct of a guy who looks out for his people, while in the background, the machine keeps throwing its mechanical fit. Without losing focus for a second, he points exactly at the root of the chaos. The glitch is hiding right there in the shoulder joint. Still a bit dizzy from the hit, she listens to the kid's totally precise breakdown about a clog in the robot's right shoulder circuit. Pulling her away from the immediate danger zone, he helps her get her balance back. As she gets up, Isabel looks at him completely baffled. She demands to know how a totally mana-less rookie managed to diagnose a flaw in her absolute masterpiece. He simplifies the impossible. He tells her he literally just saw the energy flow twist up, leaving the mage totally shook at the idea that he can actually see the invisible. The MC remembers the lesson from the old mystic, who swore up and down that mana would never show itself to mortal eyes like that. He just nods. Yeah, to him, the air is literally alive with glowing energy. Isabel flops back onto the couch, letting out a sigh like a player who finally sees the whole board. Her wall just came down because he could literally see the strings holding it up. She wonders out loud if this crazy vision is just leftover stats from that swordsman grind he claims to have dropped. Or maybe he is that raw talent that mysterious figure was secretly whispering about a while back. The kid holds eye contact, staying totally quiet, letting the sheer weight of this moment completely sink into the creation mage's brain. She stands up, rocking a brand new aura. The game has totally shifted and she already knows exactly what the next move is. With a smirk that promises some seriously intense times ahead, she announces it: the mana lessons are officially starting. He blinks, caught off guard by the complete 180, and reminds her that, like just a moment ago, he was way too weak to even deserve her time. She leans in, her smile looking way sharper and a little wicked now. He managed to do what very few people ever pull off. He actually caught Isabel's curiosity. The MC is definitely not letting this chance slip away. He smiles right back, accepting the deal that is about to totally rewrite the script of his new life. A handshake seals the deal. The master and the student are officially ready to rewrite the rules of this entire world. Standing at attention, an automaton holds up a chalkboard with a super basic sketch laying down the golden rule: a person and the literal ocean of mana surrounding them. The lesson kicks off with a major reality check. Isabel explains that mana is not some outside force you have to hunt down, but an energy already pulsing through every single fiber of anyone who is alive. The MC furrows his brow. If the power is already in there, What is the secret to making that river flow through the right channels? Chalk in hand, she draws out some sacred geometry and drops the absolute truth: mana only takes shape through a specific form. Without the teacup of a magic formula, the tea of magic is just a spilled mess on the floor. He stares at the complex lines on the board, trying to crack the code behind that crazy structure. With a seriously wicked wink, Isabel whips out a super dense scroll. It is the ultimate trial by fire for Academy rookies, a formula that completely separates the casuals from the chosen ones. Curiosity totally lights up the kid's eyes, but his master cuts to the chase. The name of the spell is a prize he will only get if he actually pulls it off. The instructions are straight to the point: find the pulse running through his veins and learn how to pour it, with absolute precision, right into the mold of that magic paper. Rocking a smile like a guy who has literally faced down armies, the MC accepts the challenge. He is not just going to try, he is going to absolutely dominate this. Isabel crosses her arms, totally hiding her skepticism. In her book, even the absolute fastest prodigies take an entire month just to not embarrass themselves on this test. She wonders to herself, if the guy really does have that god-tier touch, maybe he could actually pull off the crazy feat of activating the paper in 2 weeks. Standing in front of the formula laid out on the floor, the kid gets into a stance like he is gearing up for the ultimate boss fight. The mage's instructions loop in his head like a mantra. All his focus is now on tracking down the heat of the energy living deep inside him. His warrior logic totally saves the day. Waking up mana is really no different from Jing Sword Ara. The big secret is just taking a super deep dive into your own core. The outside world just fades away under his closed eyelids. He sinks into the absolute depths of his soul, searching for that original spark. On the stage of his own mind, he takes a knee, condensing every single thought into one point of absolute pressure. The grind totally pays off. A vibrant light starts overflowing, breaking right through the physical and spiritual barriers. The second he touches the scroll, the flow hits the mold, the formula completely comes to life, and for the very first time, he feels the sheer weight of the truth. With his eyes completely lit up, it finally clicks: the mana was always right there, just waiting for the boss to give the order. His hand rests on the glow of the activated scroll. The MC's face looks exactly like a guy who just totally reclaimed his own destiny. Isabel watches him, thinking to herself that taming mana is a lot like learning how to walk. It is just a whole sequence of wipeouts and scraped knees until your body finally figures out the balance. But what she actually sees leaves her completely frozen. The shock is so massive that she literally loses her words, leaving nothing but a super stunned silence. She remembers the old golden rule in the mystic world: how fast you learn is the ultimate gauge of how absolutely legendary you are going to become. With his back to her, the kid watches the sparks he just brought to life, acting like he is staring into a brand new universe. The mage steps closer, her walk super slow and heavy, just trying to process the absolute impossible that just went down right in front of her eyes. It is completely surreal. He did not need weeks, or even days. It only took one single try for him to bend the mana totally to his will. Her mind flashes back to that whole golem incident. He spotted the flaw in the flow before he had even awakened his powers. She asks herself, seeing mana explains a lot, but pulling off a flex like this on the very first try, that takes something that goes way beyond just good eyesight. Isabel's look locks into some fierce conviction. The mystery behind how he did it matters way less than the absolute certainty of what he represents. Her internal verdict is totally final: this kid is not your average mystic. He is just raw, broken tier talent in its purest form. Like it is literally celebrating the breakthrough, the spell bursts into the air, painting the ceiling with a gorgeous sapphire fireworks show. The MC looks up, completely hypnotized. The sheer beauty of what he just created leaves him totally speechless. Isabel completely breaks character and runs over to him, her excitement bubbling over into a smile she almost never shows. The pats on the back are the ultimate trophy. She promises she has never seen a flex like that and calls what he just did a literal academic miracle. But the kid turns around looking super grumpy, dropping a level of disappointment that totally floors the mage. He glares at the trail of his own magic like it is trash, complaining that the glow is nowhere near what he was actually aiming for. His mind blasts back to his childhood, to the exact moment when seeing a real mystic totally made him believe in higher powers. In that memory, little Oscar totally lost himself in the absolute glory of spells that looked like legit masterpieces. Snapping back to the present, he confesses to a completely stunned Isabel to him, magic is the ultimate expression of beauty, and the spell he just cast is a straight up insult to that vibe. He crouches down and points at the paper on the floor, picking apart the formula's flaws with the precision of a guy critiquing a totally dull blade. His breakdown is brutal to him. The design of that spell looks just as clunky and busted as that broken golem's circuit. He looks right at her and drops the $1,000,000 question. What do you think of this rough draft? Leaving his master stuttering, totally unsure how to react to that genius-level audacity. Clenching his fist, the MC realizes his brand new goal. Just being a regular mage is way too basic for a guy who used to be a sword saint. The gleam in his eyes does not lie. He wants absolute perfection, demanding that every single spark of his mana be a flawless show of harmony and beauty. Still processing the sheer nerve, Isabel challenges him. If the formula is that offensive, he should just grab the brush and rewrite the whole thing himself. The MC just stops. The idea of literally patching the laws of magic seems to be the one thing capable of actually surprising him right now. He steps closer, his curiosity completely shifting into creator mode. How exactly do you write destiny in the form of a spell? Far away from there, between marble columns and heavy shadows, a noble is walking with the swagger of a guy carrying secrets that weigh way more than literal crown. His stare is an absolute abyss. He is cooking up plans that are definitely going to crash right into the path of our newly minted magic user. Meanwhile, out in the village courtyard, the bully and his squad are trying to glue whatever is left of their dignity back together, soaking up a major loss under a sun that shows zero mercy to losers. The quiet of the village totally dies when the noble drops in out of nowhere. His question hits like a lightning bolt, sending a massive chill right down one of the guy's spines. Between totally stuttering and shaking, the kid tries to downplay the damage, but the master's shadow is just way too huge to ignore. The man's glare is like a razor-sharp blade. He repeats the question with a tone that absolutely does not take excuses, demanding the real story behind why they look so completely wrecked. The fear turns into a cold sweat. The two of them shrink back like cornered animals, until one of them finally spills the beans before the punishment gets even worse. In a totally isolated corner, the bully unloads the entire humiliating story onto his master, who processes every single detail with some seriously creepy calmness. Suspicion completely clouds the noble's face as he studies the massive signs of defeat all over his apprentice's body. He tries to wrap his head around the impossible in his mind. There is absolutely zero logic explaining how the MC, in that condition, managed to completely wipe the floor with his top student. The dismissal is ice cold. The master gets what he needs and tells the kid to go patch himself and his squad up, because tomorrow's training is going to be absolutely brutal. Eyes, sir, slips out with a super submissive bow, while the master's eyes are already zoning out, calculating his very next plays on the chessboard. Staring up at the massive sky, the guy mutters to the wind that the waiting game is officially over. It is finally time to make a move. A totally wicked smile creeps onto his face. He decides that his welcome gift for the MC is going to be a forced awakening of his sword aura. The scene shifts to the ultimate nerd sanctuary surrounded by the smell of old paper and hidden relics. The MC and Isabel take a deep dive into studying magic formulas. Boxed in by a literal wall of massive books, the kid admits he totally underestimated how complex the seals are. Isabel hits back with the obvious without the soul's geometry. Magic is just a bunch of smoke. She recognizes his insane radar for the occult, and, in a super rare moment of being nice, opens up her private library. The MC can barely even believe his luck. Tapping her temple with a seriously proud smirk, she promises her entire stash is up for grabs. Her knowledge is officially his brand new hunting ground. The second she turns her back, the MC practically vanishes into thin air, leaving her totally confused by how fast he moves. He pops back out of the shadows, carrying a literal mountain of paper and leather, announcing, like it is totally normal, that he is not even done raiding the stash yet. Shock completely takes Isabel. She asks if he is planning to haul a whole lifetime of knowledge in one go, and he just confirms that he is taking her invitation 100% literally. The mystic is left completely speechless, dealing with the relentless logic and the absolute hardcore thirst for knowledge this kid is packing. Balancing his massive pile of loot, the MC totally shifts the tone of the chat. He drops a warning that carries the heavy vibe of an actual curse. His stare turns ice cold. He reminds her that she is now a living mana vessel, with circuits completely vibrating in sync with the ether. His advice hits like a straight punch to the gut. She needs to stay way out of range of sword aura, no matter what it takes. His memory flashes to the cynical smirk of the man who, in a whole different timeline, taught him the secrets behind steel and aura. He wraps up the warning with the dead, serious tone of an oracle. If those two paths ever cross inside the exact same body, her absolute final destination is the graveyard. On the road to Eisen Village, the galloping hooves set the pace for a guy rushing back to the very place he absolutely never should have left. Oscar keeps riding, his face showing the heavy burnout of a guy who has seen and done things his soul is totally struggling to carry. In the total quiet of a bedroom, he reunites with his recovering dad. The greeting is super dry, weighed down by all the years they spent apart. The old man jumps a little hearing his son's name, and with his absolute last bit of strength, waves for him to come closer to the bed. Oscar takes a knee, answering the call of the man who was his very first rulebook and his ultimate master. The past echoes right back in his dad's voice, doubling down on how he always knew Oscar's true talent was meant for the steel. Flashing a smile that hides a tiny bit of totally smug triumph, the old man insists that crushing his son's dream of magic back in the day was absolutely the right call. The flashback in the kid's mind is super vivid, his dad's hand grabbing him right by the collar, a move of pure, absolute dominance. The memory drags him right back to the humiliation, the MC on his knees, facing his dad's rage, getting completely shaped by fear. The scene cuts hard. A hand in a black glove holds the envelope that is basically his get out of jail free card, stamped right with the Academy's official seal. Standing right in front of the Academy's massive gates, the kid stares down the exact future that the steel tried to rob from him. Holding the invite like a weapon, he faces off against his dad's shadow, demanding the signature that will officially unlock the mystic path. Lit up by a blazing campfire, his dad leans heavily on a cane, looking like an absolute boss who totally refuses to go down. The MC closes the gap while the old man demands to know what his son could possibly still want from him so badly. He holds out the paper. He came to grab the one and only thing missing to make his Magic Academy enrollment 100% official. Out in the courtyard, it is a total battle of wills. The dead silence between the two is only broken by the crackling of the campfire. His dad just scoffs at the rush, asking why he is in such a massive hurry for something he thinks is just a totally silly phase. The guy's stare is pure annoyance, trying to use his heavy presence to bend his kid to his will just one more time. The MC smiles, but it is definitely not a sweet one. He is absolutely stoked that he is just one ink stroke away from snapping the chains his dad locked on him. The man rubs his forehead, totally triggered. To him, it is absolutely insane that the heir to the sword is looking for a safe spot among a bunch of mages. The kid drops a question that cuts right through the years. He wants to know if his dad actually remembers the time little Oscar begged to learn magic. He just gets hit with total disrespect. The master claims he only remembers some random, whiny childhood phase. In that super bitter flashback, his dad totally writes off his kid's dream as useless fantasy, saying it is just stuff for people with zero grit. The echo of that insult still stings. The MC remembers hearing his own soul getting called stupid by the exact person supposed to protect it. His dad's hand crushes the kid's chest in the past, a literal physical weight, trying to bury the most alive part of him. Snapping back to now, the MC accepts that this is the only perspective the old man will ever have, and right then and there, he drops his mana in a massive burst that shakes the whole yard and completely lights up the night. The shockwave of energy actually makes the old man step back. Through gritted teeth, he growls out the question, "What kind of sick joke is this?" His shock turns into a shout, cutting right through the dark. He absolutely demands to know how and exactly when his son figured out how to tame mana. Staring him down completely unfazed, the MC drops the real talk words were never exactly this family's strong suit, so this was literally the only language his dad was going to understand. Pure rage is basically boiling inside the man. He demands to know what the heck the kid is actually trying to prove with this whole flashy show. The dad starts spitting the poison of comparison. He heard Oscar completely wipe the floor with his brothers, and claims that beating swordsmen on pure instinct alone, without any aura, is the sign of God-tier talent. The kid tries to say he gets it, but the old man totally runs him over with a roar, declaring that he actually understands absolutely nothing. Steel flashes in the master's hand. He insists that Oscar's destiny is already locked in his blood. Just be a swordsman, and the entire world will literally bow at his feet. Without missing a beat, the MC admits his dad's logic is totally flawless, but points out that his math missed one massively important detail. He wraps up the sentence with the heavy truth of an entire lifetime's success is just an empty trophy if you are totally miserable along the way. And for just a split second, Isabel's image flashes right through his mind. The courtyard gets as quiet as a literal graveyard. The two just size each other up in the silence, with every single second feeling way heavier than the last. The old man covers his face, acting like he is taking the temporary loss and finally admitting the message was received loud and clear. Except the look he flashes through his fingers is totally sinister. He is secretly brewing up the idea that he can still fix his kid using pure, absolute force. The MC's survival instincts go totally crazy. A single drop of sweat gives away that the air just got super heavy with some serious killer intent. His dad drops the absolute ultimatum, having two powers in the exact same body as a straight-up death sentence. but the kid, without even blinking, just fires back. And what is the problem with that? The blade slides right out of the sheath with a super creepy hiss. The master warns that if his son chose the wrong path, he is going to slice that stubbornness right out of him, no matter what it takes. Wrapped up in a super dark aura, the man justifies it with absolute tyrant energy. He says his kid might hate him right now, but one day he will actually thank him for the save. The MC's comeback puts the final nail right in the coffin of that delusion. That day of gratitude never existed and is absolutely never going to happen. A bitter memory crashes the scene of his dad completely wasting away in bed while the MC himself, bleeding out on the floor, reaped the rewards of that totally toxic relationship. He confirms it to himself. Time absolutely proved his dad was dead wrong in every single word, in every single move. Using the tip of his sword to set the range, the old man totally orders his son to go grab his own weapon for the ultimate showdown. Acting completely dismissive, he pretends to be generous, saying he is going to give the kid a minute to actually arm himself. The MC closes his eyes, digging deep into his core to find that absolute calm right before the massive storm hits. When he opens them, all that is left is iron willpower, a resolution that literally does not know how to back down. He holds the Academy invite right up to the guy's face and drops the final verdict. Forget the warrior. Right now, I am a mage. The seal on the envelope glows a fiery red, the color of a choice that is absolutely locked in with zero chance of a redo. Without totally hesitating for even a second, he tosses the paper straight into the fire. The flames completely eat up the very last chain tying him to that authority. The master totally freezes. The sheer audacity of that move leaves him speechless, staring down a son he absolutely does not recognize anymore. The current sword master Brian challenges his own blood. If he wants to erase his magic that badly, he should totally try doing it with pure brute force. His dad lunges forward, the warning totally ice cold. Just because he tanked the aura pressure once does not mean his luck is going to save him a second time. The attack comes in like a literal laser beam of compressed aura. The man's shout is a warning that the kid's overconfidence is about to dig his own grave. The steel stops dead in the air just millimeters from the kid's face. The MC did not even take a single step back, treating the Grim Reaper like an old friend dropping by. With a massive smirk, Brian spills the secret. He reads every single fiber of that attack, like his dad's sword, is resting right in his own hands. The past flashes by his dad standing in the middle of the yard, completely shaping his three sons with hardcore steel and absolute discipline. The kid's eyes become a perfect mirror of his dad's technique. He does not just see the strike, he literally knows its soul. The purple aura shreds the scenery, weaving a net of slashes that turns the air into a glowing, lethal trap. Moving as smoothly as a shadow, the MC totally dodges a horizontal slash that would have sliced a massive oak tree clean in half. Taking a knee, he admits the absolutely raw truth. If there was ever a swordsman he truly looked up to as his ultimate goal, it was definitely his dad. The old man actually feels the emotional hit. Pure shock takes over as he realizes his son's hype was not an exaggeration, it was actually an understatement. He tries to process the impossible. Brian just danced straight through the blades without dropping a single ounce of aura, a flex that absolutely no guild master would even dare to dream about. Locking eyes with his dad, the kid delivers the final verdict. That sword talent the old man is so obsessed with is absolutely real, and he is the living proof of it. The master decides to totally double down. He is going to roll the dice on a 1 in 10,000 chance and force his own aura right into his kid right now. The MC calls out the complete absurdity of it. Is this seriously his big plan to fix things by force? Throwing a super sharp taunt, he asks if his dad really sank so low that he wants to completely destroy him just because he cannot win the duel fairly. Pure rage explodes in the man's voice as he totally calls him an idiot for not appreciating the gift he is trying to hand him. Brian claps back with the exact same energy. If talent is the only currency his dad actually cares about, he declares with rock solid confidence that there is something deep in his spirit he would not trade for all the glory in the entire world. His dad stumbles in total confusion, asking if he is talking about the sword he literally just abandoned. The kid's smile is completely mysterious. He whips out a quill that, with a massive burst of mana, expands right into a beginner's staff. It gets the job done. Gripping the wooden staff tight, the MC stares down the guy who raised him, totally ready to show that this game runs on brand new rules now. He brings Isabel into the chat. He admits high-tier magic is still a totally huge mystery to him, but points out his dad understands spells about, as well as a blind guy gets colors. Channeling his mana, he drops the ultimate challenge. A swordsman only trusts what he sees, but there's absolutely no way to predict the invisible dance that is about to kick off. The mystic glow sets off massive alarm bells. The man plants his feet and goes into full guard mode, absolutely ready to crush whatever trick his kid throws. The master rushes in. A complete blur of steel and rage slices the air in a lightning fast strike with zero room for errors. But the kid's eyes light up with a deep blue. He totally picks apart the attack's path with the chill of a guy who has watched this movie 1,000 times. Ghosts of his past duels flash right through his brain, literally feeding him the exact math for a totally flawless dodge. Brian's smile is pure poison and absolute confidence. He knows this next move is going to totally break his dad's brain. At the absolute last millisecond, he tilts his body. The blade completely whiffs right past his skin, leaving the swordsman swinging at nothing. His dad just freezes, eyes wide open. His kid's agility is a total insult to everything he thought he knew about human limits. Giving him zero time to recover from the shock, the kid spins his staff, flipping his defense straight into a mystic offensive. The mana condenses, totally recreating the exact light that amazed him as a kid. A sword of pure energy pops up, while a magic circle completely lights up the floor. He dives deep into the memory. Every single light particle is a massive tribute to the spell that permanently altered his soul. Channeling the pure hype of that kid dreaming in the shadows, he pulls off the exact miracle his adult self finally managed to unlock. His voice rings out with absolute boss energy. Spark Spissa. The energy blasts out like a literal roar of pure light. For just a split second, the image of a woman chilling in a rocking chair flashes through his mind, like an echo of some long, lost warmth. His dad totally stumbles. That glow is not just magic, it is a ghost he seems to recognize from a completely buried past. The spell blows up into a massive shower of glowing sparks, crashing right into the steel sword and completely neutralizing the physical attack. Shielding his eyes, the old man totally stutters, his voice cracking as he realizes that technique is just way too familiar to ignore. Before he can even get his balance back, the MC teleports behind him like a literal ghost, his eyes pulsing with ether, totally ready for the checkmate. His dad demands to know if it was all just a cheap distraction, but Brian shakes his head. In the magic game, every single spark has a job to do. With an absolutely flawless leverage move, the kid launches his dad's steel right up into the sky, leaving the Grandmaster totally empty-handed. He catches the sword mid-air and jams it straight into the ground next to him, like a literal monument marking the end of an era. In the shiny steel of the blade, the reflection completely immortalizes the exact second the hair finally dethroned the patriarch. The big brain play is revealed. Brian knew his dad would swing relying purely on his presence instincts, completely ignoring his actual eyesight. The guy's face is absolutely overflowing with frustration. He finally gets that the light spell was just the perfect bait to steal his shiny metal pride. The finishing blow is verbal. Brian admits he literally learned how to hide his real target behind a smokescreen straight from his own dad. The master shrinks back, totally defeated. He rubs his face, trying to scrub away the image of getting completely owned by his own kid. Throwing out one last desperate flex of authority, he asks, "I can guarantee your talent with the steel, but who in the world is going to guarantee you are not just a total scrub at magic?" The courtyard is absolutely boiling with tension. Two guys, two totally different paths, and one single truth about to get dropped. With the total chill vibe of a sage, Brian fires back that he does not need any guarantees. He just needed to show which road his heart officially picked. He drops the absolute emotional checkmate. Did you actually become a swordsman just because somebody told you that you would be good at it? His dad goes totally quiet, and his eyes completely space out to a memory from decades ago. In the flashback, the man is staring down the future, totally torn between the legacy of steel and the mystery of magic for his unborn kid. He remembers chatting with his wife, his absolute master-level ego guaranteed that their bloodline could only ever spit out a hardcore warrior. His wife, flashing a smile that could disarm literal armies, asked if he did not just swing the sword for the pure thrill of feeling alive and looking totally awesome. Her verdict was like a massive breath of fresh air. You absolutely cannot force a choice, because their kid would be the one and only boss of his own destiny. Snapping back to reality, the dad admits he messed up. He was waiting for a sword saint, but now he totally sees that the guy standing in front of him is meant for something way bigger. He literally turns his back without saying a single word, leaving the MC in a massive cloud of surprise and uncertainty. The kid calls out, totally stressing that the silent treatment means they are cutting ties for good. The man stops and picks up the enrollment paper, the exact one the MC tossed into the fire, or at least the one he totally thought he did. Brian just watches, speechless, while the boss of the family scans the piece of paper that is basically going to decide the next few years of his life. Flashing a half smile, his dad drops his final gem. "You are absolutely not going to be able to sign this with that fake magic quill. Use a real one." He finally gave him the green light. The view totally shifts. The towers of the Magic Academy reach up like massive stone spears against the sky, looking insanely epic and mysterious. Down in the VIP halls, a silver-haired master flips through the files. This year's batch of rookies is definitely going to shake the absolute foundations of the kingdom. Super heavy hitter names get dropped in the room. The Norton bloodline, the Gerosis clan, and even the Imperial Princess's royal self made the cut. The master rocking a stylish hat paints the full picture. They are not just basic newbies, they are hardcore prodigies practically holding ancient magic in the palms of their hands. Chilling in a dark corner, a hooded professor smirks. There is just something about those names that is totally feeding right into his sketchy little plans. The witch next to him catches that totally wicked gleam in his eye and asks if something is bothering him. Exactly the opposite, he mutters while his amulet pulses with a super creepy glow. Having so many saints bunched up in one spot, it is going to be an absolutely beautiful show. Completely ignoring the background plotting, the MC dives head first into the books. He knows his new grind is going to be built on pure studying and sweat. Down by the guild gates, his dad is waiting. Not like a strict master ready to yell about training, but like a regular guy who, for the very first time, is actually ready to let his kid leave the nest. His dad turns around, flashing a super rare and totally honest smile as he watches his son walk up to officially head out. Time really flies. He thinks to himself how the last 6 months of hanging out and training literally vanished in the blink of an eye. Brian pops up next to him, totally sharing the exact same vibe. The days just melted away while he was completely rebuilding his magic stats from scratch. He points out that, in the magic game, the absolute grind is just as brutal as the sword. A ton of people gave up their whole lives just to master a single tiny spot. The guy drops a hand on his shoulder and gives his ultimate advice. Since you literally picked your own path, do not ever let anyone tear you down. See this through the absolute end. The patriarch's stare is a total rock, super firm and completely unshakable, totally radiating all the confidence he used to hold back. With the totally chill vibe of a guy who has already seen the game over screen, Brian smiles. Do not even sweat it. After growing up with you, there is literally nothing in this world that scares me. His dad lets out a quick laugh. He completely gets the heavy irony of that joke and the massive respect hidden right inside it. The goodbyes wrap up, the kid waves and hits the road, while the old man just stands there, totally locking in the image of the son who finally broke his chains. Brian's fingers grip the acceptance letter. The paper feels like it is literally pulsing with the promise of a totally new era. His heart starts pumping faster. The absolute hype of a decades-old dream is literally about to become real. He is finally going to step through the gates of the Magic Academy, the spot that was always his one true endgame. A massive entrance creaks open, totally flooding his view with pure, blinding white light. The castle pops up like straight-up fantasy art, towers literally poking the clouds, while glowing mana petals drift around like colorful snow. The magic school daily grind is already going crazy. Students are out here dueling with wands, drawing crazy light arcs and sparks that totally light up the courtyards. Out in the quad, a little gnome orchestra is blasting some super vibrant tunes from their instruments, literally providing the soundtrack for academy life. Shadows zip across the grass as upperclassmen on flying brooms buzz right over Brian's head, and he is watching it all like a guy who just unlocked a brand new map. He completely soaks in the vibe. The Kirk National Magic Academy is the total opposite of the Sword School. The air here does not smell like sweat and rusty metal. It smells like pure mystery and endless possibilities. The Gnome's super festive melody keeps looping in the background, basically acting as the hype track for his grand entrance. He checks out the tiny musicians. He notices their specs are way different from Isabel's golems and tries to reverse engineer the mechanics of that artificial life. Focus, he tells himself. Getting totally distracted by the scenery is cool and all, but the deadline to hand in his official paperwork is definitely not going to wait. A totally familiar voice cuts through his thoughts. Isabel is waiting for him, looking like an absolute boss right in the middle of the student traffic. She hits him with a teasing tone, asking if he actually put in the work over the last few months. Brian swears his glow up would literally drop jaws, and his master is super hyped to see the proof. Looking seriously expectant, she challenges him to whip out something she has absolutely never seen before. He points out toward the inner campus, noticing the total lack of huge crowds and asking where the heck the rest of the student body is hiding. Isabel breaks down the logistics. The yard is a ghost town because the massive elite placement exam is literally going down right now. She explains the meta. Most kids are split between those who can actually hold mana and those who just sense it. But Brian wants to know exactly what is sitting at the very top of the food chain. Way above everyone and everything else sits first class. An absolute VIP sanctuary saved strictly for the kind of prodigies born with their destiny written right in the stars. A purple rune circle pulses in the background while she describes the exam as the brutal filter that totally separates the gold tier players from the complete scrubs. To Brian's total surprise, she suggests he stay far away from that test, which honestly makes the kid's curiosity spike to maximum levels. Her face gets super serious. The warning is no joke. Stepping into that class is basically locking yourself in a cage match with a bunch of totally starving monsters. We are talking about heirs to ancient bloodlines, kids who literally learned how to read by staring at spellbooks and have been breathing absolute sorcery since day one. Instead of backing down, Brian flashes a massive grin. If the difficulty spike is that insane, it means the secret strats they teach there are exactly what he has been hunting for. Isabel just sighs, totally defeated. She knows that completely stubborn look way too well to think any of her warnings are actually going to stick. Since you are going to be that stubborn, she mutters, go ahead and see the giant gap you are trying to jump with your own 2 eyes. They walk up to the arena. The crowd is going absolutely wild while a super high tier duel pops off right under the master's noses. One of the candidates is controlling water spheres like an absolute pro, popping a liquid shield to tank a heavy barrage of invisible wind blades. The elemental clash sets off a massive steam explosion that completely hides the fighters, cranking the crowd's hype meters right up to the max. Right in the middle of the crowd, some young dude jumps up and totally screams, hyping up the crazy power display like he just won the tournament himself. Brian completely reads the play. The goal is not just a straight-up wipeout. It is all about showing off some absolutely bot-level precision on the targets. But out of nowhere, his old Sword Saint radar goes totally crazy. There is a seriously toxic stare locked right onto the back of his neck. A super arrogant voice calls him from behind. Brian spins around and totally comes face to face with the literal boss of spoiled noble energy. Zazan from the Gerosis house rolls up with his chin practically in the clouds, making it completely obvious that a basic NPC standing there is a massive insult to his bloodline. With eyes totally dripping in absolute disgust, he drops the command, get out of this courtyard. VIP air definitely was not made for basic lungs like yours. Brian does not even blink. He fires back with an ice-cold tone, pointing out that the rulebook absolutely does not care about your DNA, only your actual stats. Zazan lets out the super sarcastic laugh, backed up by his whole squad of hype men, totally mocking the sheer absolute nerve of this random guy. Right then and there, Isabel's warning clicks perfectly. These monsters are not just overpowered in magic, they are completely shielded by centuries of rich kid privilege and ego. He completely gets the vibe of the place. First class is not just about heavy spells, it is an ultra-exclusive club where regular folks are just treated like total glitchy intruders. Without even asking, Brian basically just walks right past Zazan and announces he is grabbing the very next slot in the arena. He literally tells the noble to take a seat and watch how a pro actually does it. Over in the distance, the examiner adjusts her staff and watches the absolute tension spike, while Zazan's wind blades start buzzing up a storm, totally setting the stage for the massive clash that is about to drop. Zazan spins around, his face completely locked into the kind of sheer snobbery you only unlock after centuries of pure noble breeding. He totally projects his voice so the whole arena catches it. First class is the VIP lounge for people who have been breathing ether since they were literally in diapers. With a super brutal wave of his hand, he tells the peasant to witness the massive gap that years of blue blood and elite grinding put between them. Zazan's lips move in this totally boss-level whisper. Call that everything freeze, calling on the insane ancient power of his spell, Grand Freeze Mega Pagano. The floor actually cracks under the weight of absolute zero. In the blink of an eye, these massive ice pillars erupt right out of the ground, shooting up like giant crystal spears, picking a fight with the sky. The crowd's dead silence gets totally shattered by everyone literally gasping at the same time. The whole arena is just completely shook by the insane scale of that elemental flex. Brian just stands there, totally frozen, his eyes glued to the giant ice structure. He is definitely not hiding his surprise, because the sheer scale of that magic is genuinely huge. The audience absolutely loses it, exploding into cheers and crazy hype screams. That is Gerosis house power right there. They yell, totally bowing down to the legacy of the Ice Lords. Throughout the crowd, the rumors start flying super fast. The crazy move was literally just a teaser, and Zazan's absolute peak power level is still totally hidden. Completely soaking in the massive win, the noble announces that there is absolutely zero room for fakes here. If you do not have a total grip on the true core of magic, you are literally just dead weight. Brian checks out the frozen masterpiece and gives a little nod. He completely gives credit where credit is due, admitting that spell is the totally legit result of a lifetime of grinding and skipping out on fun. But the hype totally dies with a little smirk. It is a total shame. The MC mutters, "All that insane power, and what an absolute waste." Pure rage completely lights up Zazan's eyes. He literally demands Brian say that crazy disrespect to his face again, totally unable to process that level of absolute nerve. Without giving him the satisfaction of a comeback, the kid just keeps walking, strolling right past the noble with the chill vibe of a guy ignoring a random speed bump on his way to the arena. In his head, his decades of sweating it out as a sword saint completely flash by. He knows better than literally anyone the heavy price of every single callus and every year of pure discipline. For just a second, he actually wondered if his brand new magic run could keep up with the top tiers. But, gripping his magic quill, Brian's smirk becomes completely bulletproof. He totally sends a mental thank you to his rival. Zazen's little magic show literally just proved that the absolute ceiling of this academy is way closer than he ever thought.